Captain Victoria Reed stood at the bridge of the EDF Vigilant, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the destruction of New Venus colony. The crystalline ships of the Nexary moved with terrible precision, their translucent hulls refracting starlight like deadly prisms. She had watched 3 colonies fall in the past week, and each time, Earth's most advanced weapons had proven useless against the alien vessels. "Captain, they're moving toward the civilian evacuation ships," Lieutenant Omar Patel reported, his dark eyes reflecting the red emergency lights that bathed the bridge. Reed's jaw tightened. "Position us between the evacuees and those bastards. Divert all power to forward shields." She knew it might be futile, but she'd sworn an oath to protect Earth's citizens, and she intended to keep it. The Vigilant, a Marathon-class destroyer, moved into position. At nearly 2 kilometers long, it was one of the largest ships in Earth's defense fleet. Yet against the Nexary, it felt like positioning a paper boat before a tsunami. Multiple energy signatures detected, called out Weapons Officer Danny Zhou from her station. "They're charging weapons." The first blast from the Nexary ship struck the Vigilant's shields, and Reed watched in horror as the energy simply passed through their defenses as if they weren't there. Alarms blared across the bridge as systems began failing. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. Patel shouted over the chaos. "We're losing power to the starboard engines." Reed grabbed her command console as the ship shuddered. "Status of the evacuation vessels?" 5 minutes until they reach jump distance, Zhou reported, her fingers flying over her console. "But we won't last that long under this bombardment." That's when Reed noticed something peculiar on her tactical display. The Nexary weapons were passing through their shields, yes, but there was a slight deviation in their energy signature when they encountered physical matter. "Zhou, analyze the weapon impacts on our hull. Focus on the molecular interaction at the point of impact." While Zhou worked, Reed ordered evasive maneuvers, trying to buy them precious seconds. The Vigilant groaned under the assault, its armor slowly being eaten away by the alien weapons. "Captain, I'm seeing something strange," Zhou called out. "The Nexary weapons, they're not energy-based as we thought. They're using some kind of phase-shifted matter?" Reed's mind raced. If the Nexary weapons were matter-based, just operating in a different phase state, that meant, "Patel, reconfigure our shield harmonics. Don't try to block their weapons. Try to match their phase frequency." "That's insane," Patel protested. "We'd be completely vulnerable to normal attacks." "We're already vulnerable." "Do it." Patel worked quickly, and Reed held her breath. The next Nexary blast approached, and passed harmlessly through the ship entirely. "It worked," Zhou exclaimed. "They're missing us completely." Reed allowed herself a small smile. "Now we know how they've been passing through our defenses. They're fighting in a different phase state." She opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Captain Reed. I'm transmitting data on a critical Nexary vulnerability. Their entire combat strategy relies on phase-shifted matter. If we can develop weapons that operate on their phase frequency." A massive explosion rocked the ship, cutting off her transmission. A Nexary vessel had adapted, firing conventional weapons. "Hull integrity at 15%. Patel reported. "We can't take another hit like that." Reed made her decision. "All power to engines. Get us clear of the combat zone. The evacuation ships have the time they need, and we have information that could turn this war around." She watched as the crystalline ships grew smaller on their view screen. "We're not done yet. Not by a long shot." In the days that followed, Reed's discovery would prove to be the turning point humanity desperately needed. As she stood in the briefing room at Earth Command, presenting her findings to the assembled admirals and scientists, she knew the real battle was just beginning. The Nexary had shown their hand, revealed a weakness, and now humanity had a fighting chance. But looking at the casualty reports from New Venus colony, Reed understood the cost of that knowledge. They had lost thousands to learn this secret, and she silently vowed their sacrifices would not be in vain. The stars had been silent for so long, but now they spoke of war, and humanity would answer with thunder. As she left the briefing room, Reed caught her reflection in a window overlooking Earth. Her uniform was still scorched from battle, her red hair singed at the edges, but her green eyes burned with determination. The Nexri thought they had found an easy target, a species ripe for extinction. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Dr. Marcus Zhang hadn't slept in 3 days. The Jupiter Weapons Facility's massive laboratory hummed around him as he stared at the quantum simulation running on his holographic display. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally neat black hair stuck out at odd angles, but he barely noticed. Not when they were this close. Running test sequence 2847, announced Dr. Rashida Patel, his second-in-command. She looked almost as exhausted as he felt. Phase variance at 99. 7% match with Nexri signatures. The laboratory, carved deep into Jupiter's largest moon Ganymede, represented humanity's last, best hope for survival. Banks of quantum computers lined the walls, and in the center of the room sat their prototype, the QP-1 cannon, a massive device that looked more like a piece of abstract art than a weapon. Energy stabilization holding at 92%, reported Technical Officer James Chun from his station. Better than the last run, but still not enough. Marcus rubbed his temples. Captain Reed's discovery about the Nexri's phase-shifted technology had given them the key, but translating that knowledge into a working weapon was proving nearly impossible. 3 more colonies had fallen while they worked. The problem isn't the phase matching, Marcus muttered, mostly to himself. We've got that. It's maintaining weapon coherence at the point of impact. He pulled up the latest simulation results, his fingers dancing through the holographic data. A sudden alarm cut through his concentration. Red lights began flashing throughout the facility. Multiple Nexri signatures detected. The facility's AI announced. Estimated time to arrival, 15 minutes. Rashida's face went pale. They found us. But how? This facility is supposed to be completely shielded. Marcus's mind raced. They couldn't evacuate, not with the prototype nearly complete. But if the Nexri destroyed their work, humanity would lose its only chance at fighting back. James, begin facility lockdown procedures. Rashida, help me with one final test sequence. We're out of time for perfect. We'll settle for functional. His team moved with practiced efficiency, even as fear lingered in their eyes. The massive blast doors began closing around the laboratory, designed to withstand even a direct nuclear strike. But against Nexri weapons? Marcus wasn't sure. Diverting all power to the prototype, James called out. Facility defenses are armed, but they won't stop them for long, Marcus finished. I know. He turned to his terminal, fingers flying across the controls. Rashida, remember that paper we discussed last month? About quantum entanglement and parallel phase states. She looked up from her station. The one you said was brilliant but completely impractical? Yes. Why? Because we're about to try it. Marcus began modifying the weapons core programming. We've been trying to match their phase state perfectly, but what if that's the wrong approach? What if we instead created a quantum superposition of multiple phase states? Rashida's eyes widened. The weapon would exist in all possible states simultaneously until observation collapses the wave function. Exactly. James, begin charging the prototype. Full power. The facility shuddered as the first Nexri attacks struck their outer defenses. Warning lights flashed across their screens as barrier after barrier began to fail. 5 minutes until facility breach, the AI warned. Marcus's modifications would either work or blow up the entire lab. There would be no middle ground. As the prototype's power core began to glow with an unearthly light, he thought about all the lives depending on their success. Quantum core stabilized, James reported. Phase variance. I've never seen readings like this. It's like the weapon exists everywhere and nowhere at once. Another explosion rocked the facility. Closer this time. 3 minutes until facility breach. Rashida looked at the readings and gasped. Marcus, these power levels. If this works. I know. He stepped back from his console. Target locked on the nearest Nexri ship. James, on my mark. The laboratory's reinforced walls groaned under the alien assault. Through the facility's external cameras, they could see the crystalline ships, beautiful and terrible, their weapons charging for another attack. 2 minutes until facility breach. Marcus took a deep breath. Everything they'd worked for came down to this moment. Fire. The prototype cannon hummed to life, its barrel glowing with shifting colors that hurt the eyes to look at directly. A beam of pure quantum energy lanced out, passing through the facility's walls as if they weren't there. On their screens, they watched as the beam struck the nearest Nexary vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship's crystalline structure began to vibrate, its phase-shifted matter trying to exist in all states at once. With a silent flash, the vessel shattered into 1 billion glittering fragments. The remaining Nexary ships immediately halted their attack. For the first time since they'd appeared, the aliens retreated. The laboratory erupted in cheers, but Marcus wasn't celebrating yet. He was already running calculations, figuring out how to replicate and improve the weapon. They had proved it could be done. Now they needed to arm Earth's fleet. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered, his voice thick with emotion and exhaustion. Tell them the Forge has awakened, and we're ready to begin production." As his team rushed to comply, Marcus finally allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had just evened the odds, and the real fight was about to begin. The Nexary would learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, it was their refusal to accept defeat. In the depths of space, the quantum phase cannon's light continued to spread, carrying with it a message that would echo across the stars. Earth was fighting back. Lieutenant Kinzo Tanaka stood in the cargo hold of the stealth transport Shadow Strike, watching his team gear up with the new QP combat suits. Each suit cost more than a small starship, but after what he'd seen at New Mars Colony, they were worth every credit. "Check your phase modulators," he ordered, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had earned him command of Quantum Strike Team Alpha. "One malfunction, and you'll be out of sync when the shooting starts." Sergeant Diana Rodriguez, his second-in-command, was already running diagnostics on her suit systems. The quantum phase armor gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, its surface seeming to shift between states of matter even as you watched it. "All systems green," she reported, her dark eyes focused on the helmet's internal display. "Teams ready for drop, Lieutenant." Their mission was simple on paper but nearly impossible in execution. Infiltrate a Nexary-controlled mining facility on Titan, gather intelligence on their operations, and if possible, rescue any surviving human workers. They would be the first humans to ever set foot on a Nexary-controlled installation. 5 minutes to drop point, the ship's AI announced. Kinzo did one final check of his own suit. The technology Dr. Zhang had developed was revolutionary, allowing them to shift between normal space and the Nexary's phase state at will. In theory, they could walk right through the aliens' defenses. In practice, well, they were about to find out. "Remember," he addressed his team, "we're not just testing equipment here. Every bit of intel we gather could save millions of lives. Watch each other's backs and stay in communication range. Phase shifting can disorient you fast." The team of 12 stood ready, each member representing the best Earth had to offer. Besides Rodriguez, there was demolitions expert Wei Chen, tech specialist Aisha Okafor, and 9 other elite operators chosen from military forces around the world. 1 minute to drop. Kinzo sealed his helmet, the quantum interface coming online with a soft blue glow. Through the ship's hull, he could see Titan's orange atmosphere and the crystalline spires of the Nexary facility rising from its surface like frozen lightning. "Strike Team Alpha, deploy." They dropped from the Shadow Strike in perfect formation, their suits automatically shifting to match the Nexary's phase frequency. The sensation was bizarre, like existing everywhere and nowhere at once. Kinzo had thrown up the first time he tried it in training. Now he barely noticed. The team landed silently on the facility's outer surface, their boots finding purchase on material that should have been intangible to them. Dr. Zhang's theories about quantum superposition had proven correct. They could interact with phase-shifted matter while remaining invisible to it. "Rodriguez, Chun, take point," Kinzo ordered. "Okafor, start scanning for human life signs." They moved through the crystalline structure like ghosts, passing through walls and barriers. The interior of the Nexary facility defied human architecture, spaces folded in on themselves, Corridors curved in impossible ways, and everywhere, living crystal pulsed with alien energy. Getting some strange readings, Okafor reported, her Nigerian accent tense. Multiple human signatures, but they're wrong somehow. Phase shifted, but not like the Nexuri. Kenzo frowned behind his visor. Wrong how? Like they're being transformed. They found the answer in what appeared to be a central chamber. Dozens of human workers, still in their mining suits, were suspended in crystalline pots. But they weren't dead. Their bodies were slowly becoming crystalline themselves. Dear God, Rodriguez whispered. They're not just killing us. They're converting us, Chen finished, his voice grim. Making us like them. Kenzo's mind raced. This wasn't just a mining operation, it was a transformation facility. The Nexuri weren't simply invading. They were trying to forcibly evolve humanity into their own image. Plant the charges, he ordered. We're shutting this place down. Okafor, get all the data you can. The world needs to know what we're really fighting. But as his team moved to comply, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Not normal alarms, waves of crystalline resonance that made their suits vibrate painfully. They detected us, Rodriguez shouted. Phase shift compromised. The walls around them began to move, crystal formations growing and shifting like living things. Through them, Kenzo could see the first Nexuri defenders approaching. Humanoid figures made of living crystal, moving with terrible grace. Combat positions, he ordered, raising his quantum phase rifle. Chin, finish setting those charges. Everyone else, show these bastards why humanity isn't ready to evolve. The battle that followed would become legendary in Earth's military history. Quantum phase weapons met crystalline technology in a firefight that existed in multiple states of reality simultaneously. The team's suits allowed them to phase in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing like wraiths as they fought. Charges set. Chun called out. 2 minutes to detonation. Kenzo watched a crystalline warrior shatter under his rifle fire, its form breaking into 1,000 glittering shards. Fall back to extraction point. Rodriguez, clear us a path. They fought their way back through the facility, quantum weapons carving through alien defenses. Behind them, the charges detonated, sending cascading waves of destruction through the crystalline structure. As the shadow strike swooped in to extract them, Kenzo took one last look at the collapsing facility. They had struck a significant blow, but the knowledge they'd gained weighed heavy on his mind. The Nexuri weren't just fighting a war of conquest, they were fighting a war of transformation. Back on the ship, as his team began removing their suits, Kenzo opened a channel to Earth Command. Mission accomplished, he reported. But sir, everything we thought we knew about this war? We were wrong. The Nexuri aren't trying to destroy humanity. They're trying to perfect it, and we need to stop them before they succeed. In the depths of space, the crystalline ships continued their advance, but now they faced an enemy that could fight back. Humanity had learned to match their phase-shifting technology, and more importantly, they had discovered the true stakes of the war. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about preserving what it meant to be human. Commander Natasha Volkov had chased ghost signals across 3 star systems before her ship, the EDF Seeker, finally found what she was looking for. The massive asteroid belt beyond Pluto's orbit held a secret that had eluded humanity for over a century. Signals stronger now, reported Navigation Officer Raj Patel, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Whatever's out there, it's big. Natasha brushed a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face, her pale blue eyes fixed on the sensor readings. After Lieutenant Tanaka's team discovered the Nexuri's transformation facilities, Earth Command had authorized her to investigate rumors of pre-war defensive installations. Most thought she was chasing legends. She knew better. There, she pointed to a particular cluster of asteroids. That formation isn't natural. Look at the spacing. The Seeker's advanced sensors penetrated the cosmic debris, revealing what appeared to be an artificial structure larger than any space station ever built. But it was old, incredibly old. Dating puts it at least 90 years pre-war, said Dr. Amit Kumar, the ship's science officer. Before the Great Exodus, when Earth first reached for the stars. Natasha nodded. before we got complacent, before we forgot why our ancestors built weapons into everything they made. She opened a channel to the ship's EVA team. Lieutenant Jackson, prepare for reconnaissance. The structure's airlock was frozen shut, decades of cosmic radiation having fused its mechanisms. It took shaped charges to break through, but what they found inside made the effort worth it. Commander, Jackson's voice crackled through the comm, filled with awe. You're going to want to see this. Natasha donned her pressure suit and made her way through the decrepit airlock. The facility's interior was dark, illuminated only by their suit lights, but as power systems slowly reactivated, she saw what had stunned Jackson into silence. Ships. Hundreds of them. They filled massive hangar bays that stretched for kilometers, their hulls covered in dust but otherwise pristine. These weren't civilian vessels or exploration craft. These were warships, built in an era when humanity still remembered the need for armies among the stars. Impossible, Dr. Kumar breathed, scanning the nearest vessel. These ships, they're powered by quantum singularity cores. We're only now developing that technology for the anti-Nexury weapons. No, Natasha corrected, brushing dust off a nearby plaque. We're rediscovering it. Look at this. The plaque bore an inscription, Project Sentinel, humanity's shield against the dark. Our ancestors knew, she continued, her voice tight with emotion. They knew we'd face something like the Nexury eventually. So they built this place, this fleet, and waited. As if responding to her words, the facility's main systems surged to life. Holographic displays flickered on, showing star charts, tactical data, and combat protocols that had waited nearly a century to be used. Station AI coming online, Raj reported. It's asking for authentication. Natasha stepped forward, remembering the ancient codes she discovered in Earth's deepest archives. This is Commander Natasha Volkov, Earth Defense Force. Authorization code, humanity endures. The AI's voice filled the chamber, speaking words that had waited generations to be heard. Authentication accepted. Welcome, Commander. Project Sentinel stands ready. Screens throughout the facility displayed the full scope of what they'd discovered. This wasn't just a hidden fleet. It was an entire defensive network. Automated weapons platforms, stealth satellites, and quantum communication relays lay dormant throughout the solar system, waiting to be awakened. Dr. Kumar, begin analyzing the ship's weapons systems. Raj, download all tactical data. Lieutenant Jackson, I want full structural assessments of every vessel in this bay. Natasha's orders came rapid fire as her mind raced with possibilities. The ships were old, yes, but their technology was beyond anything currently in Earth's arsenal. More importantly, they had been built to fight enemies exactly like the Nexury, species that wielded physics itself as a weapon. Commander, Dr. Kumar called out, his voice excited. These ships don't just have quantum cores, they have phase-shifting capability built into their hulls. Our ancestors had this technology, but they sealed it away. The historical records suggest they thought it was too dangerous, too easy to abuse. Natasha walked through the rows of silent warships, her hand trailing along their cold hulls. They weren't sealing it away, she realized. They were saving it, waiting for the moment when humanity would truly need it. She opened a channel to Earth Command, knowing this discovery would change everything. This is Commander Volkov. We found it. The lost fleet exists, and it's more than we ever imagined. But we'll need pilots, crews. She paused, looking at the vast armada around her. We'll need warriors worthy of what our ancestors built. The response from Earth was immediate. How long to get these ships operational? Natasha watched as more systems came online throughout the facility, ancient machines awakening to serve their purpose at last. The AI is already beginning reactivation sequences, with full crews working around the clock. 2 weeks, maybe less. Make it 1 week, Commander. The Nexury have begun a major push toward Earth. We need every ship we can get. She smiled grimly. Understood. Volkov out. She turned to her team. You heard them. We have a week to wake up a century-old fleet and turn it into humanity's last line of defense. As her crew rushed to comply, Natasha stood before the facility's main viewport, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Nexari were advancing, believing they had humanity figured out. They thought humans were predictable, easily transformed, easily controlled. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Humanity hadn't survived and thrived among the stars by being predictable. They had done it by planning ahead, by building weapons they hoped they'd never need, and by being willing to do whatever it took to remain free. The Lost Fleet was awakening, and with it, humanity's true potential for warfare. The Nexari wanted a perfect humanity? They were about to discover that humanity had perfected something else entirely, the art of survival at any cost.